do me a favor and don't press the skip ahead button. Just listen to this little promo because it might be something that's interesting to you. My friend Jeff, who is sponsoring these episodes right now, is one of the hosts for the War for the Tower podcast, which is an actual play RPG podcast set in the universe of the Dark Tower. However, he's gotten a little bit tired of telling all of you guys how great that show is and trying to promo that one, and he's part of a podcast network called the Sinister Parent Company Network. So maybe you'd be interested in some of the other shows he's involved with. Good Idea is an improvised think tank that takes half-baked ideas and turns them into genius. Everything is Awesome is an in-depth interview show about independent art, good writing, and social issues. Something Wonderful Right Away is a hilarious long-form improv show, and Shattered Worlds RPG is a space opera actual play that uses the RPG system that Jeff created. Check out all these shows and more on the Sinister Parent Company Twitter feed at SinParentCo. And of course, you can find War for the Tower at warforthetower.com. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, the Christmas special, kind of, Season 7, Episode 1. The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe. In this episode, I really rather like this Christmas special. I like anything that has a bit of a nod to Narnia in it. I liked these wooden people. And I thought that the ending was very sweet, and it put me in the Christmas spirit. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Jamie.
So, Jamie, are you also in the Christmas spirit? Did it get you?
It's all right.
I enjoyed this one.
I think it's, I'm not like you when it comes to Narnia. I can't stand Narnia, so I don't like that comparison.
Why can't you stand Narnia?
Okay, I never read it as a kid.
Okay.
So I didn't have that sort of association with it. So my first experience with Narnia was the movie, The Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, no.
And I felt like I was punched in the face over and over and over again with religious iconography, and this lion is Jesus, and I was so furious by the end of it that I was angry at my friends for not warning me what I was getting into. It just felt like an assault of religious nonsense. Although I did like Tilda Swinton a lot in that movie, but it's Tilda Swinton, so how can you not?
Right.
This is how much I don't like Narnia. Ben Barnes is in the sequel, and I have not seen it.
Is he? Who is he in the sequel?
Prince Caspian.
Oh, that doesn't feel like it suits at all. That's surprising.
It was before he was always cast as bad guys, but I assume Prince Caspian's not a bad guy. I don't know. Haven't seen it.
He is indeed not a bad guy.
Yeah, so... I also liked James McAvoy, because how can you not like James McAvoy? I just didn't like that movie, and I felt like it was just too much, like, trying to be clever with its religious allegory when it was really, really obvious and, frankly, insulting to me. But I was a full adult with already, like, particular views about religion, so... Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that the reason I liked it is because I began reading them before my dad became really psychotic about what I was allowed to consume. Mm. But then once he became like very strict about things, it fell within what was permitted. And so I was already on the receiving end of such a like being buffeted by religion so constantly that it just completely washed over me. It was the kind of thing that as a kid, I just fully expected everything to have a religious angle to it after a point. And so the fact that this also did felt completely normal to me at the time. And nowadays, if I came at it, I'm sure I would have a very different reaction to it. But at the time, I was just kind of like, yeah, well, I mean, everything is like this, isn't it? You know
How
what
old
I mean?
were you when your dad made that sort of change, that conversion?
Probably like around 9.
Okay. Ironically, some of my favorite stuff in A Song of Ice and Fire are the religions that George R. R. Martin created.
Sure. But that's an entirely different thing when it's fictional.
I think that they're fascinating and would love to know more. And, but it was just, I don't know. I think it's because I was like 28, 29 years old or something when that movie came out. I don't remember. And nobody warned me ever in my life. I worked in a bookstore. Like, I never knew that these books were so religious. And so I went into it thinking, like, this is going to be a really fun, like, fantasy movie. And then I was just like, oh, I get it. The lion is Jesus. Fuck, stop.
It's kind of funny because it's not even like the books are religious. Like, and that's not to say that there isn't Christian allegory in all of them. But Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is by far the most blatant.
Really?
The others aren't really quite... The others are much more like a fantasy element.
Because I know C.S. Lewis was very religious, but so was Tolkien.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know. I completely understand what you're saying. I really get it. It's just funny how, like, that kind of thing would really irritate me now, probably. But at the time, it just felt so expected. It's really kind of depressing, actually, when I think about it.
But that aside, like, this episode, I think is fine. It's a sweet story. I think the widow is great. Mm-hmm. I think the kids are not annoying. Mm-hmm. Cyril is a very cute child.
Oh my God.
With his big
old glasses.
You guys know
that I am not a sucker for children. But that kid with his fucking Coke bottle glasses really is everything. He's very adorable.
He's very adorable and precocious, but not like cloyingly precocious. Mm-hmm. I think the doctor is delightful in this. Mm-hmm. I like the story of it. At first, I was like, what's happening at the beginning? So I'm like, this is a Christmas right? Did I put the wrong one on? And then I realized, like, no, this is just a weird opening I didn't remember. I remembered all the other stuff, and I just did not remember that opening at all.
Yeah, I watched this episode twice, and I was very confused by the opening, even on the second watch. So I understand being like, wait, do I have the right one? I completely forgot that was how that started.
Yeah, and it's weird because I watched this. We're catching up on I slowed down on my rewatch, and now we're very, very close to where I'm at. I need to get going. But I watched this maybe a month ago, and then I watched it yesterday, and I had to stop it and go back to the menu. I'm like, did I click the wrong episode? Because, again, it felt so out of place that I was like, this isn't right. It's a Christmas episode. What's happening here?
Yeah. So reminder for those of you who wonder what we're talking about in terms of the opening, there is some situation with a spaceship. It's, a massive one, that we don't really ever get any sort of information about. It just begins to explode. We go inside and we see that the doctor is like running and apparently trying to evacuate the place. And he winds up out in sheer space alone, trying to claw his way into a spacesuit that has fallen off the ship with him. And he manages to do it in time to hit Earth and apparently not die just from the impact, which is sort of puzzling to me. I don't really understand how this thing kept him from being turned into raspberry jam. But evidently he is okay. I kind of wondered if this wasn't going to be what made him like regenerate. But
I saw your commentary on the post from last week's episode where you were surprised that, and it didn't occur to me. Like, yeah, the other doctors you've experienced, like Christopher Eccleston was gone after 1 season. David Tennant was on for three seasons. But then he had all those specials leading up to his goodbye.
Yeah.
That it makes sense that here's 2 full seasons of Matt Smith that you would think, like, well, he's going to regenerate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I like that kept you on your toes.
Yeah, I didn't even, like, realize it was keeping me on my toes, but I just was sort of, like, low level, sort of waiting for it, I guess.
Well, and you spent an entire season with, like, the doctors dying at the end of this.
Yeah, true. So, he winds up in a field, and this lady discovers him. She is very much just rolling with it in the way that his companions do. And, I use companion loosely with her, of course, but he often has people that are just kind of like, well, this is incredibly weird and something that I can't understand or explain or have never seen before, but I'm just gonna deal with it.
Yeah, she comes across a guy in a field in a spacesuit that's on backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, goes to her kid, is like, tell Dad I took the car. I'm gonna go help this guy. He might be an angel. Find a phone box.
I love that. I'm helping a spaceman. He might be an angel. And then after all of this and the kid giving her this long look and saying, okay, his dad comes around the corner and says, where's she going? And the kid just says, out. I was like, yeah, that sounds right. That seems like how a kid would be. And I was so confused a little bit later, but it turns out he can't, because his helmet's on backwards, so he can't see. And it turns out that he can't turn his helmet, he can't take it off because the suit is, like, busy repairing him inside.
Yeah.
So that was a, like, thing that I missed the first time because he walks into several telephone poles. And I really started to be like, sir, it's cute and everything, but take the helmet off. What are you doing? And then I caught that bit of dialogue on the second watch, and I was like, oh, I didn't even hear that he said that. Okay.
It's an impact suit, which is lucky.
That's very convenient, yes. I don't really get how that could possibly work. And I'm not, like, gonna split hairs over it or anything. It's fine. But I have a hard time with that one. With just imagining that is the thing that would work at all. Can
you imagine if at the beginning of a Christmas special, they have the doctor falling out of a blowing up spaceship and dying? Right at the beginning, and then he just regenerates into a new doctor.
That would be pretty, like, he's a gift. He's a gift, baby. Have you seen Steven Universe?
Watch the first episode. I haven't watched the rest yet.
Oh, if you saw the first episode, then you saw Cookie Cat, the whole song. He's a treat for your tummy, Cookie Cat. He's super duper yummy, Cookie Cat. He left his family behind, Cookie Cat. He's it's this really lighthearted marketing song. And then all of a sudden, he left his family behind, and you see the Cookie Cat on a spaceship leaving his home planet with tears in his eyes, and it's really abrupt and terrible. And, that would be a weird way to start off a Doctor Who holiday special. So he tells her that if she needs help to make a wish for him at some point, because it tends to work for him. And then she goes back to her house and she's talking to her husband about how he has to stop reading about the war news because if the more people read about it, the more likely it is to happen, which I guess. And he sort of smiles gently at her, and then we cut to him in the war. And he is flying a plane and cannot see where he is going. Things are not good for him right now. And he says his I hesitate to call him a co-pilot because he's not like.
No, it's just one of the
seat next to him.
It's just one of the crew on his ship, his plane.
That's fine. but the crew member is like, what should I tell Anderson? And he's like, tell him we're going home for Christmas. And I was like, that was bleak. I mean, I guess you could phrase it like that, but like, you don't have to. And then we go to the woman who obviously, like, she got the telegram that he had died, but it turns out that she has not yet told her children that he has passed away. And honestly, I cannot get behind this as a decision overall. Not to say that I don't understand making this choice, because I do understand why she felt the way she did about telling them right now at this time of year. But constantly telling them that he will be home for Christmas and then he doesn't show, to me, is so much worse.
Yeah, that was my concern with it. Not that she wasn't telling them at Christmas and ruining their Christmas and ruining Christmas for the rest of their lives.
Right.
But the idea of, yeah, he's going to meet us at Uncle Digby's house. He'll be there. And then him not showing up is more tragic. Agreed. So just say unfortunately, he can't come home because of the war. It's very simple.
If you decide to say it like that, I think that's a smarter way to handle it. And sort of, if you're going to continue to lie to your kids, like, make the lie something that works.
And then you have the opportunity to tell them later, and they don't need to know that you've known for a couple of weeks.
Right.
You can say, I just got this telegram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. Because the idea of a parent knowing and not telling their kids is the sort of thing that I feel like could really foster a problematic relationship.
Yeah, you would never trust your mother again.
Yeah, this is the sort of thing that comes up in fucking therapy later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like I said, I understand the impulse to handle it this way. But I really thought that as time went on, she would begin to realize how much worse overall everything would be if she kept it up. And she doesn't. She doesn't really ever seem to think, oh yeah, you know what, that was a bad call. Even when she finally does decide to tell them, it's because she blurts out, I don't want to see him die in front of them, which is just such a horrific moment. Yeah, that bummed me out. But for now, we get a pretty fun thing where the kids and her are going to this uncle's country estate, which is very akin to the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe thing. I mean, it's just a thing with a lot of British children's literature written around this period. It was a huge theme for kids to be at a rich relative in the country's house due to the Blitz.
Yeah.
And
it was extremely common that Londoners sent their children to country homes or family if they could, or friends of family, wherever they could get their kids out of London.
Mm-hmm. So in the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Diggory, who is from the first book, is old and is their uncle. And he says a few times, what do they teach children at school these days? Which is something that the doctor winds up saying this episode, which is a reference to that, which I chuckled over a bit.
And the uncle's in this, his name is Digby instead of Diggory.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even catch that Digby thing, but yeah, you're right. I always enjoyed the name Diggory. It's so weird. I like it. And the doctor is the caretaker, as he puts it. Mm-hmm. And he shows them around this house, which looks incredibly dark and forbidding in the main entryway where they are received. But then as they go around from room to room, it's much more welcoming in all these other spots. It sort of feels like they're two different houses. And I wonder if they were filmed in two different places. The entryway is maybe filmed in a in an estate home or something. And then maybe once they get past this initial thing, it's all a set. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me see if there's anything. I don't remember reading anything about it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't there.
And yeah, so he has the chairs set up in the sitting room so that they like move around like they're in they're at Universal Studios or something. Honestly, like it's quite a thing that as a kid, I know I would have been like, this is amazing. And as an adult, I'm like, I will vomit. Do you want me to vomit and ruin your upholstery? Like, that's not going to be good for anybody. Don't do this. It's such a shame getting older. Because I'm close enough to know that I would have liked this at one time. So it's not completely, like, escaping me that there is something pleasurable about this. But I just can't actually enjoy it anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't... Why do we have to grow up? What's that about?
I don't know.
I just don't like it. It's a really, like... It just seems kind of... What's the point of it? When you're a kid, you would just have a better time. So much more easily than you do as an adult.
Because you don't have responsibilities as a kid. It's harder to let go.
It's more than that, though. It's like, as a kid, because you don't know what's out there,
yeah,
you are satisfied more easily because you're not thinking, yeah, this is cool, but it would be better if...
Right.
You know, whatever. You don't have that perspective at all. So you're just like, oh, this is amazing. This is exactly, yes, perfect. I don't know. It just kind of makes me sad that, like, you reach a point in your life where things either have to be a really, truly outstanding or it doesn't seem special or it doesn't affect you the same way. I don't know. I don't like getting older. I don't like losing my sense of wonder. I don't like that I wouldn't enjoy these chairs rolling around. I say rolling, just gliding, I guess, but you know, I want to. And then he this is again, growing up makes things terrible. He's leading them through the kitchen and he's like, here's the kitchen, hot, cold, lemonade. And he points to the lemonade tap. And I'm like, that brass piping combined with the acid from lemonade is a bad deal, dude. That's not going to work out. This is, and I'm not kidding. My first thought was brass pipes and lemonade. Why? Why am I like this? I don't like this. So then they go to the kid's bedroom, which he is very, very proud of. And the monologue that he does here, I would love to know how many takes they had to do and how long it took for him to memorize this. Because, good God, this goes on for a minute. Lily and Cyril's room, I'm going to be honest, masterpiece. The ultimate bedroom. A science-y, wine-y workbench. A jungle. A maze, a window disguised as a mirror disguised as a window, selection of torches for midnight feasts and secret reading, Zen garden, mysterious cupboard, zone of tranquility, rubber ball, dream tank, exact model of the rest of the house, not quite to scale, apologies, dolls with comical expressions, the Magna Carta, a foot spa, Cluedo, a yellow fort. I think it keeps going from there, does it? Oh, no, this is when Cyril interrupts and asks where the beds are. Well, I couldn't fit everything in. There had to be sacrifices, but who needs beds when you've got... And he pulls a lever, and down comes 2 hammocks. And they give him this look, and he says, I know. And it's the third time he has said, I know, in exactly that way. And when Cyril asks how you get into a hammock, he attempts to demonstrate by jumping directly between both hammocks right onto the floor.
Yep.
And
it's not honestly much easier to get into a hammock, so... Look,
we bought a hammock recently to use in the yard. And, like, once you get up in there, it's fine.
Yeah.
But you have never felt like such a fucking prat as you do trying to get into a hammock. If you can do that shit gracefully, you're a gymnast. You've got some sort of, like, ability.
Yeah, there's no graceful getting into a hammock.
And getting out of it again, you don't want, guys.
I think I haven't been in a hammock in a long time, but I think I always just resign myself to, I'm just going to fall down, so I just fling myself off of it.
That's kind of what you have to come to terms with.
Yeah.
You're going to just kind of face plant, more than likely, so you may as well just get yourself spiritually ready for that and deal with it. Because, especially if the hammock's just a little bit too high off the ground, too. Because I've got short legs. So you can't even, like, until you've almost slid all the way out of it, if your toes don't even touch the ground. Like, there's nothing to brace yourself on.
Yep.
It's just really awkward and it's embarrassing. So at this point, Madge loses her temper and basically yells at the doctor to shut the fuck up. Why don't you just shut up? Oh my God, stop talking, shut up. And she tells the kids to go downstairs, and they ask if they are leaving. And she says, yes, no, I don't know, just get downstairs, and kind of really, like, yells at that point. And her daughter gives her sort of a reproachful look. One of those things that I'm sure as a parent is very difficult when you've, like, you know that you have not been at your best just now and that your kids have every right to be reproachful. And she tells the doctor, once they are out of there, that their father is dead and she hasn't told them, and she doesn't want them to always see Christmas as the holiday that, like, stole their father from them. But also, like, they are expecting him to come. And she doesn't know what to do. And knowing that they're going to be so sad makes everything feel like there's just a pall over it anyway. And that is the thing for me, I think, more than anything this episode, that, like, when I was putting myself in the shoes of her kids, trying to think how I would react, that kind of made me feel like this is why it's the wrong decision. Every time that she interacts with them, it's very clear she is grieving. And they don't apparently see it. And I don't know if this is something that a lot of kids wouldn't pick up on. But I know for myself, I was a really perceptive kid. And my mother would do this sort of thing where she was going through something or had just had a fight or, you know, whatever. And she would try and behave as if everything was fine. And it was very easy to see through. And I always knew. And it was awkward because I felt like I had to pretend I didn't for her sake. Even though I knew she was pretending it hadn't happened, allegedly for my sake. And sometimes let's just drop the pretense and just deal with the fact that there's something happening here. And I guess it's just supposed to be that she's such a good actress that her kids don't pick up on this.
Or that
but
her kids aren't perceptive.
Or that they're not perceptive, maybe. Because, you know, I'm sure as an only child, I didn't have a lot of other, like, distractions to what was going on with my parents. What was going on with them was pretty much front and center what was happening with me. And if you've got a sibling, maybe that sort of, like, pulls your attention away a little bit. I don't know.
I don't know, because my parents split when I was 4. And I don't remember them being together. I have one memory of my parents living in the same house, and it's of them fighting when my dad was packing. So I don't know. And when my mom split from my stepdad, I was 17. So, you know, nothing was surprising at that point.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I think they tried to keep it from me as much as they could because I was so little, but it like whatever was going on with them, it didn't make an impact because I was so young.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just always found it harder to cope with the fake, like, cheer.
I think that parents, and I'm not a parent, so I don't have any authority with this. I think that not just parents, but just people in general tend to think that kids don't see what's happening around them,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or that they can't handle things, or that they won't understand. But kids generally, I think, are more perceptive than they're given credit for.
Yeah.
And I think that trying to put on a happy face for their sake ultimately ends up hurting them in the end anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because they also then feel like they've been lied to.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll look back on it and be like, yeah, no, my parents just lied to me about everything that was going on. They didn't tell me. And then all of a sudden they're getting divorced and it was a shock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think, maybe giving kids a little more credit that kids are very adaptable and adjustable. If you're honest with them, I feel like it's always going to be better, even if it's hard in the moment for you or for them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll understand better if you're like, this is what's going on. And it's very upsetting for everybody. Instead of making it like they don't need to know until it's absolutely necessary. Because that's how kids end up all fucked up because their parents got divorced. How many people are like, have like problems in relationships and whatever because their parents got divorced at like a pivotal time in their life.
Mm.
And it was just like thrust on them out of the blue.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying, like, that's why...
It was such a weird thing in my case, because I was waiting for them to get divorced my entire life, certain it was around the corner at any moment, and then they just fucking waited until I was in college. And I was just like, what? Why now? What?
Yeah. I'm glad that my parents got divorced when I was so young. Because they obviously hate each other still to this day. So it was better for everyone. And it wasn't always great for me because they would argue. Even after splitting up. They would argue on the phone. They would argue through me. You tell your father this. You tell your mother this. And I was like a 6-year-old kid. Like, I don't want to be in the middle of this. Yeah. So all that kind of behavior was destructive. But my parents were really... I mean, my mom was pretty young. My dad was probably close to 30 when they got divorced. But my mom was like 24 or something. So she was basically a kid. They didn't know what they were doing. But
none of us does, I guess.
Yeah, but I know so many people that are like still fucked up because their parents got divorced. And I'm like, really? But don't you see that it was better for everyone involved? Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're not supposed to be together. You're better off for it. But they're like, it just hit them in that trauma center that they were never able to get through, usually because they're shocked by it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine your parents being so good at hiding that they were having problems that you'd be shocked. That is like really amazing to me, the idea.
I think kids probably know that things are bad, but they also don't have any reference point to be like, it's not going to get better. I mean, I've seen a lot of like TV shows, dramas and whatever, where kids are like, oh my god, my parents just need to get divorced. They fight all the time. Mm-hmm. But it's the ones where the parents don't fight in front of the kids or like whisper fight so the kids can't hear it.
Yeah.
And all you see is like, they're not happy, but you don't know as a kid, like maybe they're just not happy people.
Right, or maybe they're just having a fight about a specific thing that they're disagreeing on, and once they get that figured out, it'll be all fine again.
Right. And I just don't understand staying together for the sake of the kids or until the kids are older. Like in your case, how did it benefit any of you?
I honestly think in my case, the main benefit was to my mother, because she did not feel that living by herself, she would be able to afford to... Because I was one of those kids that was involved in so many like school activities and things like that. Mm-hmm. And that I think that
really it was a financial issue, and that is with so many people staying together due to money.
Yeah.
So I really think that was more what drove her decision than you can say it's for the sake of the kids, and it's not untrue.
Right.
But that makes it sound like it's for their like mental well-being, and in fact it's just the practicality of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. There are some people who legitimately do stay together until their kids are like off to college or whatever. That there are, I'm sure, a lot of cases of the women just being like, how am I supposed to do this by myself? Because the childcare is going to end up on me.
Mm-hmm. Of course. So the doctor talks about this with her and tells her, like, the whole point is to let them have this and be happy because they are going to be so sad later. He says something like, you might think, what's the point when you know they're going to be so sad later? But that is the point. Mm-hmm. So downstairs, the kids have found the Christmas tree that he has set up, which is a towering confection of lights and electric trains, and just there's a lot happening here. The kids love it. I can't decide if as a kid I would love this or hate it, because I was a snob even as a child. So I feel like I wouldn't like it, but also there is something fun about it. And there is a giant TARDIS blue package in front of the tree that is meant for the two of them for Christmas morning. And we find out later that this was meant to be a Christmas outing to this planet that has like what are naturally occurring sort of Christmas trees. I really can't help but laugh at the idea of them waiting to open it until Christmas morning and then showing up to this arid, acid-rained, like destroyed.
Well, he's on the wrong planet, though.
He is?
Doesn't he say something about it was supposed to be like fairy tale, the planet fairy tale, something like that. And these are naturally occurring Christmas type trees, but there's something off about the place. I thought that it was that they ended up in the wrong place.
I don't think so.
Oh.
I think that it's like, because he says, this is one of the safest places I know of. Nothing dangerous ever happens here a couple times. So I think it's just that he didn't know that it was going to be like harvested and that the trees would have this sort of reaction to the knowledge that they're about to be harvested this way. But I think that this is like the place is the correct place.
Okay. I think
anybody listening, if you know,
I think I misinterpreted it that because he says something. I wish I had the line in front of me about it. But on Fairy Tale, this happens, and him seeming to be confused.
I do not remember that line. It's
right when he and Lily first get there, when he's explaining the place.
Let me just jump ahead to that moment. They go and. It is fun, their first, like, arrival there. Lily, by the way, looks so much like, oh my God, Ty from Clueless. Brittany
Murphy?
Murphy, thank you. She looks so much like her to me. It kept sort of distracting me because I was like, she's not British, it's not her. Let's see. In you come, bit cold, never mind. Cyril, he finds the thing. She says, where are we? He says, in a forest, in a box, in a sitting room. Pay attention. Which is a pretty good line. And this is when she asks, like, he says time moves differently in different dimensional planes. What do they teach you at school these days? He says, it was a present and it wasn't supposed to be opened until Christmas Day. Who opens their Christmas presents early?
So many of us.
I would get very agitated about that. We're allowed one early present on Christmas Eve and that's it.
Oh, that's my rule now. But when I was a kid, there was many a Christmas when I peeked at what things were.
Oh, and then I would have gotten in such trouble.
And then taped it back up.
Jamie!
And I was a very good actress.
I never did that. I did that one time for my birthday, and I regretted it so much.
Oh, I always felt guilty, but I never let on. And I was able to appropriately give the right kind of surprise to convince
Sparkle surprise.
the family that I was seeing this for the first time. The one that stands out to me is when my mom got me The Lost Boys on VHS, which at the time you couldn't just go and buy movies very easily. And she bought it from a video store, and they went to a Christmas party, and I was babysitting my brothers, and I very carefully unwrapped that present to see what it was. And saw it was The Lost Boys and was very excited about it. But I had to hold on to that information for like weeks.
Why did you do that to yourself?
I was 12. I don't know.
God. I can't understand it. I just couldn't do that. I would definitely like shake and poke and prod, but I would, oh my God. The scandal.
Now, I get mad at myself if I accidentally guess what something is because of the shape of the box. Like, I think Jason has learned, like, obviously, DVDs and stuff like that put in a different size box.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also with pop dolls, putting them in different boxes so I can't tell. Like, that's a pop, though.
That's a good call. Does he put a weight in there as well so you can't pick it up and be like, this is about the weight of a pop doll?
I tend to only move around my own gifts to him when I'm putting more stuff under the tree so that I'm not accidentally, like, seeing how heavy or light something is. I'm trying to be really good about not guessing my gifts because I always sort of ruined it for myself when I was a kid.
Yeah, like that. Like I said, I did it one time for a birthday present, and it absolutely ruined it for me. It was a pair of rollerblades, and I just, when the day finally came to actually open them and knowing what it was already and having to pretend, it just really was hard for me to like fake it all and be excited, especially because they weren't the rollerblades I had wanted either. Which was often the case with my parents. Like, I would want something specific and ask them for the very specific thing.
Yep.
And they would not take notes or remember. And they would get me a version of it, which was like everything I asked for was specifically so I didn't wind up with these exact features, which now I am stuck with. But yeah, I just profoundly regretted it and wound up promising myself that I was never going to do that again. All right. So Lily says, are we in Fairyland? He says, Fairyland. Oh, grow up, Lily. Fairyland looks completely different.
Oh, okay.
That's what I think you were thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little mean for a second there. Grow up, Lily. And I was like, ouch. Sir. I would love for the Doctor Who episode where he goes to Fairyland, though. Are we getting that at some point?
I don't know.
I would really enjoy a Fairyland trip. Just saying. And this is when he finds the footprints and they figure out that Cyril is following something that is growing in size. I will say, too, I really like the fact that these things that it turns out are out here walking around being all threatening are not actually like bad guys. Because they didn't look like bad guys to me. The carved wooden people, king and queen. And I was going to be a little bit bummed if they turned out to be bad guys because they just looked so awesome. So it made me happy that they were just tree people, basically. The king and queen of the forest. And it turns out, to jump ahead a bit, that what's happening is that the trees know that they are about to be acid rained on, which is part of this like energy harvesting thing that horrible human beings are participating in, evidently.
Mm-hmm.
And they are trying to evacuate. The souls of the trees are attempting to get the hell out of Dodge, but they need to piggyback on something that's alive. So they are attempting to ensnare a human to use as a life raft and get the hell out. And we wind up with one of maybe the worst puns this show has ever done, re the mothership. When we find out exactly who is strong enough to like sustain all of these forest souls. And I just, look, it's fine, but whomever decided that that was a good thing to put into the script should be slapped.
Well, get prepared to slap Stephen Moffat.
Stephen Moffat needs slapping for so many reasons that I'm fine with that.
He wrote this.
The mothership. Good God, sir. Really? Really? I bet he thought he was so clever when he came up with that, too. I bet he cackled to himself.
I would bet money that he thought, like, I am so clever.
Yep.
Look at the play on words I just came up with.
I wonder if people are going to get it.
He does often come off as somebody who thinks he's the smartest person in the room at all times.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. So, anyway, their mother is following them. And this is when we wind up meeting this weird mining crew. Which, it's a weird thing. I like, part of me wonders if these folks are going to turn up again at some other point. Because it feels like they put a lot of energy in the script into making them distinct characters. Mm-hmm. In a way that I feel like there's got to be a callback later to make all of this pay off a little bit more. But I could be wrong about that. And there's a dude who like keeps crying because Madge is crying. And he says that it's because he has mother issues and it's all in his file. Which I really like that line a lot. It's all in my file. And the woman is talking about the optics of like holding a gun on an unarmed female civilian, and her boss keeps trying to insist that there are no optics because there's nobody here to see it, yada yada yada. And eventually it turns out that Madge is weeping as a ruse to get them off their guard and pulls a gun on them. And I was a little bit like, wow, I mean, I guess it makes sense that she would be armed, but you know, you're going into this weird present universe in a box in your living room. You want to bring something. I would think that's a good plan. But I also then remind myself that, like, in the UK, being able to just have a pistol on you isn't as easy as it is in the US.
And certainly, I would think, not in 1942 or something, whenever this is supposed to be, 1941?
I think that's why she says there's a war on, to give an explanation as to why she has this gun. But I don't know if that makes, like, because, you know, you couldn't even use, like, tinfoil. All the friggin' resources were going to the war effort. So the idea of, like, having a personal gun.
Right.
I'm like, didn't they just come to your house and take everything? Like, isn't that how it works out of their cold, dead hands?
When I was researching for Band of Brothers, there's a whole thing about a lot of the soldiers, the American soldiers, were hoping to get a Luger to bring back as a souvenir. And the Luger was just a pistol that only Germans had, and not all German soldiers had a pistol. But what I learned about the arms that they would get is, like, pistols were not standard in general. So the only way that a United States soldier had a pistol was if somebody sent one to them. And a lot of their, like, local police departments would send individual guys a pistol.
Huh. That's interesting.
So I'm not even sure how commonplace it was for British citizens in general to have pistols laying around.
I just keep thinking of Hot Fuzz. Everyone's packing round here. Like who? Farmers. And who else? Farmers' mums.
I love that movie so much.
I think it's everybody and their mums packing around here. And that's why when he says farmers' mums, it's extra funny. But yeah, so she, like, kind of forces her way onto their thingy. I don't know what to call this. It's like a harvesting machine, the doctor calls it later, I think.
Yeah.
And they keep insisting that her kids are probably not out there, or if they are, I guess they're just going to get rained on. Sorry. They're very, very, like, unhelpful.
Yeah.
Except for the one lady who is also not super helpful in the end. You think she'll be more helpful than she winds up being, really. God help them. Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you, sir. And meanwhile, she can like hear the doctor and her kids for some reason. This one, I didn't really understand what was happening there. Why are they on the radio at all?
I don't know.
How is that happening?
I don't know.
Okay. I thought that I missed something, but maybe I didn't miss anything. It was just weird to me. It was like, because they're in a building that's like not really a building, that's just made of trees. Right?
Maybe it's just part of the tree's magic. The tree people's magic is allowing them to be heard by this signal is picking them up. I don't know. It's never explained.
Perhaps, she said dubiously. But she, you know, due to that, knows where, like, around where they are. And she can hear her kids with their faith that mother will come because she always comes. And indeed, so she does. She appears, and it turns out that she is the strong one. And it's actually very amusing because the boy is said to be too weak. The little girl is, like, you know, she's strong, but she's too young. And the doctor, when the boy is rejected, assumes that he's the one. And they say, you are weak. And he says, I'm really not. And it's so great to see how confident he is, because it is just all about him so much of the time that, of course, he would think it's about him again.
Right.
You know, like, I'm not even, like, mad at him. Yeah, that's how this has gone. So it makes sense. But the thing, like, almost electrocutes him. Like, it's the sort of thing where his fingers seem to seize up around it and he can't let go of it. And when Lily takes it away from him, she says, oh, that's cool. It's sort of tickly. And he's like, what the fuck? And I found that very enjoyable. I like it whenever somebody can show up the doctor.
Yeah, I know you do.
I'm always a fan of that. So the fact that it's literally a little girl made it all the sweeter and all the better. And then we have the thing
she's in, it's a vehicle, but it's a giant robot.
It's a transformer.
Basically.
Transformer. How do those go?
More than meets the eye.
That's the one. Thank you. More than meets the eye. So she puts the crown on and says something about how lovely this is as all of the sparkly star souls go into her head. And then in order to get home again, she has to think about her home intensely and really feel it. And apparently this projects like images up on the wall. Can they see what she's seeing? Or is it just us seeing?
I think we're just seeing it.
Okay. I thought that this was like something that they could all see because of the way that they were reacting, but okay. But yeah, she begins to get really panicky once she realizes that there is going to be a feature of her husband fucking crashing his plane, which I don't know how that's popping up in her head because she wasn't there for that.
Yeah, that's probably just her imagining what it was like for him. But that's how I took it, because she had the telegram. She knows that his plane went down, disappeared. Sure.
It's just weird. It's sort of treated like it's something that she...
Right, like it's something she's experienced.
Yeah, and she's watching it like against her will in this moment, but we know that she wasn't there for... It's just a weird thing. Yeah. And it's fine, but I just kind of felt like, am I missing something here? And this is when she yells, "I don't want to see him die," to which her kids do the blinking white guy gif. And then the doctor says something here. He says something earlier to Lily about how she's so happy that she cries and how human that is. And he says something like, "Good for you." And in this moment, he tells Madge to think about home until it hurts, and that he's too old to be capable of feeling things with the depth that she does anymore. And so he can't direct them home because he doesn't have it in him the way that she does. And that winds up coming up a little bit later. But for now, she succeeds in getting them home and is all sort of distracted by the fact that they have succeeded in getting home. And it takes a minute before she realizes that the kids are like, "Okay, hi, are we going to fucking talk about this now? Because you said some shit. You said some real shit just then. And you're acting like that didn't happen. And we need to have a conversation." So the doctor leaves to give them a moment of privacy. And then comes back and is like, hold up. Before you finish telling them, you need to come and see this. And it turns out that somehow her pulling these tree souls into her head provided a guiding light for her husband to follow so that he did not crash his plane after all, and in fact went through some timey-wimey portal thing and is now here for Christmas.
Yep.
And while I'm totally fine with all of this, I do have to mention, and I get what they were trying to do here for the show. What they're trying to do is do the, he follows her home. She was his guiding light. But the doctor asks how she and her husband met. And she says, "He followed me home from work. He followed me every day for days." And we see him behind her as she walks through like a very heavily wooded area. And it's supposed to be this sort of touching, like, memory that to me just was so sinister and very, like, it did not have a warm and fuzzy vibe to it to me at all.
Well, that's because you, as a woman who has experienced the world in the way that women do, we know that a man following us is not charming.
Yeah, no.
This is written from the perspective of a man who probably thinks that this is romantic.
She says, "He told me he would follow me every day until I married him, and I didn't want to make a scene." Which is so fucking disturbing, guys, because that's when you talk about like why women didn't fight back, why women didn't yell for help, not wanting to make a scene is like the number one cited reason. Mm-hmm. And so this being played as this cute story of their relationship together, it's just very jarring and not good.
I would like to send Stephen Moffat the story that I read the other day. This girl wrote it on Twitter, or maybe she wrote it on Facebook, about how she'd been on Tinder and had been talking to guys or whatever, and she shared a little bit of the conversation between this one guy, where he asked her, he knew she was a hairdresser. He asked her where she worked. She didn't say, and she said, I don't feel comfortable telling strangers my place of business or where I work. 5 months later, during COVID, this guy shows up at the salon and asks for her by name, and everything is by appointment only. There's no like walk-ins. So her boss or the receptionist or whoever was like, hold on, let me get her. And she goes out there and sees this guy and is like, I don't even know who this is. And he was like, I thought maybe this was the salon you worked at. I've gone to several different salons trying to find you. You like just stopped responding to my messages. And she realized that it was this guy on Tinder. And she was like, yeah. And? Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, I mean, I wanted to know why. And I've been, like, looking for you. And she, like, gets him to leave and was completely creeped out. She calls the cops. You can imagine how helpful the cops were.
Oh, yeah.
Where they were like, he hasn't caused you any physical harm. There's nothing we can do. But then somebody that she knows told her, like, no, you should still try to get a restraining order because what he did was stalking. And you could be in danger. And she managed to get in touch with a detective or an officer who actually, like, worked in the department that has to do with stalking. And this guy was like, give me the name of this person. And, like, went and called the guy and had a 45-minute conversation with this dude telling him why what he did is wrong and dangerous and a crime. And the dude, like, couldn't understand where this cop was coming from. Like, what do you mean? I was just tracking her down. She stopped responding to my messages. And the cop was like, yeah, because she didn't want to talk to you. That doesn't give you the right to go to her place of business when she specifically told you that she doesn't give out that information. That is stalking. What you did was a crime. And so this officer actually, like, issued a restraining order for her and was like, this is very serious and people need to take it seriously.
I love the idea, too, that this guy is probably thinking to himself, I was so nice and I don't know why she stopped replying. And it's she could probably sense that there was something about you that wasn't okay, dude, actually.
He did say that to the officer and said, I just wanted to find out if she was talking to someone else. And the officer was like, why is that your business?
Yep.
That is not your business. She stopped replying to your messages because she didn't want to talk to you anymore. And that's the end of the story. She doesn't owe you answers. And you don't get to ask those questions because you guys had a couple of messages on a dating app and that was it. She'd never ever gone out with him. It's insane.
Yeah.
Men are insane.
There are multiple women I know that blocked guys on Tinder, on OkCupid, and then that guy wound up tracking them down on Facebook and messaging them on Facebook about it. And, like, they use a totally different username. These women were like, I think that he might have reverse image searched my photo, which I also had on my Facebook profile or something, to find me because I don't use the same name. I don't have any other giveaways, but he figured out who I was.
Yeah, the officer that this girl was dealing with, because she was like, I don't even know how he found me. I never even gave him my last name. And what he did was figure out, because they matched based on location. So he figured out all of the salons in a reasonable area and then went onto those websites to see if the hairdressers had their pictures on it. And then on the site for the salon she worked at, it does have their pictures, but in order to see them, you have to actually make an appointment. So he went so far
through
as
that
to
whole thing.
Yeah, and the cop was like explaining to the guy that what you did, the lengths you went to, how do you not understand that that is stalking? Because you don't just, it's not like you just on a whim clicked on this salon and her picture came up. You went to a lot of effort to see if she actually worked there. And also went to multiple other salons to see if she worked at those places too.
Jesus.
Like, that's a crazy person.
And I'm certain that this dude said what he needed to get the cop to finally hang up and still has not learned anything.
I'm sure he hasn't, but he has a restraining order, like criminal trespass.
That's good.
Against him because the cop was like, I'm not taking risks. I've seen what this turns into.
Yep.
And it's just the rare officer, unfortunately, that actually, like, takes in the violence that happens to women and is like, I'm going to cut this off before it happens, not after.
Now, see, guys, this is what I mean. This is not...
It's not cute. And
it's not cute. I get what they were trying to do with her having led him home now in this way. Like, oh, yes, he followed her home yet again.
Right.
But you can't have this set up this way and filmed this way and have her using the language she does to describe why she handled things the way she did and not, like, and not hear, if you are a woman, what that sounds like and reminds you of. This dude following behind her in this scene that is allegedly a heartwarming moment is terrifying. Genuinely, I felt my heart rate go up watching this. I got nervous, even though I knew that this was somebody that she loved, that she was having a fond memory of. I still had a, oh God, oh no, reaction. Can't be helped.
Yeah. Yeah, the only people that would write stuff like this are guys who think that this is an effective way of getting a woman to go out with you. And who have been conditioned because of movies, because of television, because of the idea that you just have to wear her down. And meanwhile, we're all like, no.
Yeah.
I said no. So that's enough. I'm not interested. Because what we want doesn't matter. We just need to be worn down.
I think I remember reading this too. And didn't he ask her when she finally started to figure out who he was? And she says, I started talking to somebody else. And he replied with like, did you really, or are you just saying that?
No, not this same girl. Because she had like a short conversation. It's only a couple of messages. And she just stopped responding to him.
No, I mean in person.
Oh.
When he finally showed up, I feel like she tried to put him off with like, I met somebody else. And his response was, did you really, or are you just saying that? Which is like, if she's just saying that, how about you take that hint that she is saying that because she doesn't want you to be involved in her life?
Right, but also, how is this your fucking business?
It's
either way.
Yeah.
I met someone else. That's all you need to know. You don't even deserve to know that. I stopped responding to your messages because I was not interested.
God.
But the audacity that they think that
entitlement.
Yeah, they just think that there's no way they're not interested in me.
Or that you owe them, if you're not interested, a full fucking like essay on why not, to justify the fact that you're not interested, because they feel they need to argue their case. Like you are required to give them a chance if they make a good enough case for themselves. This isn't fucking court, dude. If she doesn't feel it, she doesn't feel it. And that's really, there is nothing more to be said. Like, get the hell over yourself.
Yeah. Once again, I'm extremely happy that I'm in a relationship and that it works. And if it ever stops working, I'll be single forever. And I'm fine with that because I won't go through this.
Yeah.
I found somebody that I like a lot, that I get along with really well, that I enjoy being around more than any other person on the planet, and I don't like most people. So if this falls apart, God forbid, it's going to be me and animals, and I'm going to be good.
I feel like, I understand that sentiment. I've actually said that to Owen, that, like, I feel like I got so lucky in finding him without having to do any dating.
Yeah.
He just fell into my lap. You know?
Yeah, it was the same with me and Jason. Like, we were friends. We reconnected because he was in Rhode Island, and we were just going out to dinner. And it wasn't a date. And I was adamant with my aunt, like, this is not a date. He's just my friend. I haven't seen him in a few years. And by the middle of that dinner, I was like, oh no, I really like him. And that was it for me. That was it. Like, I was like, we're dating. Yeah? We're dating? Cool.
This is not a date, but now we are dating.
Now we're dating.
Make sure that we're all on the same page here.
Yeah, like we both just kind of knew it by the end of like walking away from that restaurant. I was like, so we're dating now. And he was like, how's that going to work? And I was like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, so anyway, all this to say, I understand what it was they were trying to go for, but good God, is it evident when a man has written a thing versus a woman, because the whole tone and vibe of the thing is just totally different.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of, I know that men don't think of things the same way that women do, but it's always a shock to be reminded how very not on the same page we are. Mm-hmm. You know, there are things that I sort of give the benefit of the doubt that they can understand. And then I have to be reminded that, like, this is a dude who, like we were just saying, probably often convinces himself that he's one of the smartest people in the room. And he not only wrote this in the script, but filmed her being followed in the woods.
Yeah.
And really thought this was like a and didn't see.
Yeah, completely romantic.
Like, God.
Yeah. And, like, I'm sure there are some Moffat defenders out there that would be like, it was 2012 and, you know, things are much more openly spoken about now. Like, we're all learning. The whole Me Too thing has really brought a lot of things to light for a lot of people who never thought about it that way, blah, blah, blah. But that's not really true. This information has always been said. You had to actually listen. And what's different now is that some people are listening that weren't listening before. And Stephen Moffat has said that he's learned a lot in the last few years. He's talked about the way he wrote Amy, is particularly that episode where she jumps on the doctor at the end of that first episode with Amy.
Right.
He said, like, I wouldn't write it that way now because I see now how that's problematic. And
she tried to tell him at the time, and he would not listen.
I don't know if it was Karen Gillan, but it was somebody was like, I'm not sure that...
I'm pretty sure it was her.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, like, I get that, sure, he's learning, slowly, but learning, but I'm not sure that if you brought this to his attention that he would be like, you're overreacting. That wasn't the intention at all. Like, clearly it wasn't the intention, but please listen to what women are saying is how it's perceived, because this is the kind of shit we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's the main thing is, like, people talk about, like, okay, well, we're learning now. Yeah, but people have been saying this shit. This is, like, you know, how black people feel about the Black Lives Matter movement and people just getting on board and just now starting to understand the way that, like, police brutality is a very widespread, common thing that is not only tolerated but encouraged. And yet, when they were talking about it, nobody wanted to hear it.
Right.
It's not until it's on video and there's no choice but to, like, look at it and see it. And they've been saying this the whole time. And it's a similar thing, like, you know, this scene that he's like, I would have written it differently today with Karen Gillan. But even if it wasn't her, somebody tried to tell you at the time. And you were unwilling to hear that shit.
Yeah.
So it's not that you didn't know. It was you didn't have any interest in learning either.
Yeah.
Because somebody attempted to educate you and you weren't there for it.
Right. Yeah, this information is out there. I've known since I was 19 that the cops wouldn't do anything if I'm stalked. Because I was stalked. And I called the police. And they said, we can't do anything until he physically harms you.
Yep.
And I was like, are you kidding? Like, how does that make sense?
This is why when I talk about abolishing the police and people are like, well, what are you going to do if somebody gets raped? And I'm like, we're going to do what we always do, which is fend for our fucking selves.
Yeah.
Because cops are no help.
No help. No, the only reason that this guy he was a guy I was dating, I broke up with him and he started stalking me. The only reason he stopped is because I had a guy roommate who confronted him at the door one night and was like, if you don't leave her alone, I'm going to fucking kick the shit out of you. And my ex was like, noted, and left, and I never heard from him again. And I was like, thank God. What if I lived with a girl?
Well, if it was me, he would have just disappeared mysteriously one night. Who knows what happened? So strange. Haven't heard from him since. Weird.
Mafia boss, I see.
I don't know what you mean. I guess he learned his lesson somehow and has decided to not bother you anymore. And you know what? Good for him. I'm really glad that he has seemed to come around somehow.
All for education.
Yeah, you know, like, he hasn't done that to another woman since.
God, I hope not.
Reasons that we don't know. Anyway, so the episode ends with their dad alive and everything is hunky-dory. And she asks the doctor to stay for Christmas. And the doctor's all like, Christmas, bah, humbug. And she's like, wait, don't you have family or people who love you? And he says, I mean, yes, I do. But long story, they think I'm dead. And I gotta say, his delivery of that line, they think I'm dead, was devastating. There is so much attempt at humor, but genuine emotion in that moment. That coping mechanism that so many of us who shall remain nameless have, where we attempt to make light of a thing that we are feeling very deeply. And it just killed me, his face. He just did something there. And I was like, oh, ouch, that hurt. And she tells him that he better get his shit together because it's super unfair of him to let his friends who love him think that he's dead. So he better run along and tell them. To which he says, all right, Mom, we'll think about it. Which I greatly enjoyed. And then he turns up at Amy's front door and she's got a water pistol.
Do you hear her yelling in the background?
Yeah, she's harassing the carol singers. I never had a carol singer come to my door.
Same.
And I can't decide if I would absolutely hate it or if I would love it.
I think I would feel like secondhand embarrassment because it's like so I probably awkward.
Would too. I think it depends on how good they were.
Yeah.
Like if they were super good, I think I could just literally like put a lawn chair on my front step and sit there and just be like, go at it, kids.
Yeah.
But if they were really bad, I would probably be like, let me sing along with you guys and sort of cover up what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I do love a Christmas song, but I've never had someone show up at my door like it's trick-or-treating time to sing.
So I love the fact that once she realizes it's him, she still squirts the gun at him. Mm-hmm. And she squirts at him like 3 or 4 times. It takes a minute for her to feel like she's really gotten her point across there.
It's been 2 years for her.
Right. And there's clearly this bit of him that like expects her to be shocked. And she has to tell him that River has already spilled the beans. And he's just kind of like, oh, of course she did. To which Amy says she's a good girl. And I really liked that.
Yeah, me too.
And then she says, well, I'm not hugging first. And he says, fine, nor am I. And they each stand there, not looking at each other, but then looking at each other. Until finally they crack and hug one another. And then Rory comes up from the back. And she says, we're about to have Christmas dinner. Joining us? And he says, if it's not too much trouble. And Rory says, oh, well, we have a place set for you. And he says, why? And she says, oh, because we always do. It's Christmas, you moron. And Rory just does a jerk of his head to summon him inside. Mm-hmm. And the doctor is left standing there. And guys, this touched me so much. I'm getting very teary about it. But he just stands there in the door and looks incredibly puzzled and overcome. And then he turns around and wipes at his eye and realizes that he is weeping from happiness and is genuinely shocked at himself that he is still capable of this. Mm-hmm. And it's so beautiful, and I loved it so much. I loved it so much, you guys.
It's humany woomany.
It's so cute and nice and Christmassy.
Yep.
It made me so happy. There are so many episodes, like, for the Christmas specials that have a lot of, like, the veneer of Christmas that is very pretty. But I feel like in terms of Christmas spirit, this moment is the most Christmassy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Being with people that you love.
And them, like, waiting for you and welcoming you when you're afraid that they're going to be angry to see you, you know, and just all of the expectation that you're coming perpetually and always being ready for you to come back. That for me is the really like moving part, is this idea that every year they set a place for him and hope that he'll show, and him thinking that maybe, you know, oh my God, are they going to be mad? Are they going to even want me here? Kind of thing. And then to find out that they like want you here so much that they put in this special effort, even if they're not sure you're coming. That is just really, really touching. As somebody who has like seen people not be considered by their friends a lot lately. Whenever...
What you're talking about. It's not me, and you don't have to tell the story because it's real life stuff, but...
I will not tell the story, but guys, it is just a fact of life that some of the best people I know have the most shitty friends. And it's truly shocking sometimes how little someone is willing to think of another person and still call them a friend. And I don't understand it.
Yeah.
It just blows me away. So lately I've been a real sucker for this kind of story where there's a friend who's just there for them in this way. And, yeah, I don't know. I thought that this was such a good ending. Like the whole episode, I was just like, you know, enjoying it in a general way because of the Narnia thing and how much I loved those books as a kid. But then when we got to that part, I really was just so touched by it and I really liked it. It was a good ending. So that's it. That's the end of the episode.
Yep. So I guess this is considered the beginning of season 7. On HBO Max, it's listed as episode 700.
This is on HBO Max?
Yeah.
Motherfucker, I bought this episode and I bought season 7.
I thought you knew that.
I didn't realize it had happened. I knew that, like, I vaguely remembered you saying eventually Doctor Who's going to be available on some streaming service. But I did not remember when.
Well, I think when it first... You didn't get HBO Max right away, did you?
Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't get it, but Chris Tex got it, and so, yes, I got it right away.
Okay. Because I remember when it was coming out, because it launched in in May. And I said it's going to be on HBO Max, and it was right when we were starting season 6, but we weren't there yet. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it was coming out a week after we started season 6 or something, and you didn't have HBO Max, and you were like, I'll just buy the season.
Oh, no, you know what it was? HBO Max isn't on the Roku yet, because they haven't fucking been able to hammer a deal out, which is so annoying. Get it together, guys. Just fucking do it. Christ.
So, how are you using Chris's?
I've been using, because I've been going to the gym so much, I've been watching everything on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
So I could still do that for, yeah. But not on my TV.
Yeah, it's not available on the Amazon Fire Stick either. And that's what we had in the bedroom. And so I had to like take control of the Apple TV and put that in the bedroom because we have a 4K smart TV in the living room where the HBO Max app was on the TV. And I'm like, well, I need the Apple TV in the bedroom so I can do Doctor Who. And
I can't understand what it is with these. Like, just get over yourselves, guys. Do you know how frustrating this is? Like,
well, and also Amazon, you've got plenty of money. Just fucking make the deal. Who cares?
It's just very tiresome.
Yeah.
We know you're going to get there eventually. Like, that's the part that's the most infuriating. It's like, I have no doubt eventually it'll be there. But y'all just have to drag this shit out and make it frustrating for everybody.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that were like, are you fucking serious? Since I have Amazon or I have Roku, I can't get HBO Max? Seriously? And I watch it on my laptop?
And it would be one thing if it was like HBO Max is another tier of like that, but it's going to replace HBO now. So there's not other options. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
That transition happened like last week or something. There's no more HBO Go, HBO Now. There's just HBO is what HBO Now was. So it's that app, and HBO Max is the separate thing.
It sounded so confusing.
It is confusing. I saw somebody like wrote out a flow chart about it, and I was like, I'm just glad that I was like, fuck it, I'm just getting. We don't have an HBO subscription through our cable service, so we were doing HBO Now. So I canceled that, signed up for HBO Max, and was done with it.
Well, oh well. It was only $8. What can you do?
Well, that's good.
For season 2, yeah. If you did a SD, which I always do because my Wi-Fi sucks.
Is that the whole season?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Because I think season 7, like season 6, was split in 2.
Well, if it's only half of it, then I'm just going to have to cross that bridge when I come to it, or hope that they've fucking got their deal done by the time we get there.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And apparently, like, this aired around Christmas, as the Christmas specials do, but then season 7, officially season 7, didn't start airing until September.
Oh, wow.
So there was like a 9-month gap between this episode and the next one.
Is that the longest gap? I feel like there was another gap that happened. Was this season the one that you said was divided in 2? Also.
Season 6 was, but I think there was only like a summer between the two.
Okay.
The 2 parts. Season 7, I think, might have been, but I can't remember. There was I think a sizable gap between when season 4 ended and the Tennant specials began. And those sort of spread out over like a year and a half. Because there were always several months in between.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to add about this episode before we wrap it up?
No, not about this. Oh, wait. Yeah, there was one thing. The guy who played the Wooden King also played the Minotaur in the God Complex.
Oh, interesting. I didn't even really register that there had to be somebody in there.
Same. I thought it was maybe just completely CGI.
Or a puppet.
Yeah.
Something
His
like
eyes
that.
move a little bit, but that could be done with a puppet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they were really cool looking, that design. I like that a lot.
I don't know if you caught the line of dialogue where the doctor says that there was a tree that fancied him once.
Yes, I did. I did catch that. I forgot to mention that. It was a hot tree, too.
Yep.
Could do worse. Just saying. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the episode. And I am currently dealing with some personal matters because Owen had a death in the family. So there may be a week delay on Song of Ice and Fire starting. I will have to keep you all posted, but we were going to have to travel for a funeral. Now it looks like we're not going to have to, but there may be some other stuff going on. So just bear with me, and also apologies if I screw up on some postings because there's been a lot happening. And I've been doing my best, but I am fucking up pretty regularly. So, just be nice to me. Just be nice. That's all I'm asking.
I haven't noticed any fuck-ups.
Well, that's part of the advantage of the fact that I've been fucking up on a show that not many people are even listening to, which was the Westworld one.
Ah.
So that helped, that it was not super popular this time around, and so nobody noticed. But,
yeah, I feel like that show, like, nobody really was talking about it when it was airing for the first time since it's, like, the first 2 seasons, everybody was talking every week. Mm-hmm. And this time it came and went, and I was like, I saw Reisman made a couple of posts. I think maybe Rashawn made one. But for the most part, like, nobody was talking about it. Yeah,
it has been reported to me by a lot of people that they kind of feel like disillusioned with the show, or they've lost interest in it. And I really enjoyed this last season. I felt like the ending was a bit weak, but overall I went into it knowing that people didn't love it, and I thus had really low expectations. And so when I actually did wind up liking it, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Being told that something isn't good can really go either way. It can drop your expectations so that you are pleasantly surprised, or it can poison your outlook and make it so that you judge everything more harshly. It all sort of depends on who said it and what they said. But yeah, so anyway, thank you guys again. We love you. And we'll see you next week with a new episode and the true beginning of season 7. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.